The Beatles, in my mind, were and are still the best band that ever was. They were not the greatest musicians. They were not, movie star types. They were just a great cohesive band. Every instrument that they played made sense. Ringo was the perfect drummer for the way they wrote songs. George Harrison was the best guitar player for the way they wrote songs. George Martin was the best producer for the songs they came in with. It was just a great combination of talents that hardly ever happens. It's like lightning in a bottle. And I don't know that we'll ever see their like again. Of course, it was from my era. I was 14 years old when I first heard them. They made a huge impression on me when I was a young guy, and they kind of left the footprint that everybody tried to follow. So, yeah, to me, best band that ever was. I was a Beatle fan from the get-go. The early stuff I thought was great. A lot of it was actually rehashed R&B songs like Twist and Shout or Please Mr. Postman. But when the Beatles got into the year, I think it was 1965, they put on an album called Rubber Soul. Things started to get really interesting. These guys were growing, and you were hearing them grow. I was 14 when the Beatles came out, 64, in the States. And by the time it was 1965, I was 15 or 16, and they were doing some really interesting stuff. It wasn't all about boys and girls, oh, I want to hold your hand, she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. It was getting kind of sexy. There was a song on Rubber Soul called Norwegian Wood. I once had a girl, or should I say she once had me. And he's with this Scandinavian girl. And they're in front of the fireplace, and she says, it's time for bed. Whoa, you never heard that, on a recordings. Wow, they're going to do it. It's really kind of sexy. And she said, it's time for bed. And then it ends up, nothing happened. She told me she worked in the morning and started to laugh. I told her I didn't, crawled off to sleep in the bath. Now, that's happened to me a few times. And it happened to John, and he admitted it. I just thought the stuff on that album was starting to get very, very interesting. They were experimenting. They were pushing the envelope. They were expanding the boundaries of what had been done. And everything after Rubber Soul became even more interesting. Revolver was a strange album. It wasn't as melodic as their earlier stuff. It wasn't as pretty. It was kind of ragged and rough and experimental and exciting. And then, of course, Sgt. Pepper after that. They kind of exploded after Rubber Soul. They went in a lot of different directions, and I liked that. I liked hearing them grow. I wish I would have met John Lennon. We used to live in the same area on the North Shore of Long Island. He had a house in Laurel Hollow, and I had a house in Lloyd Neck, which was right across from the water from each other. And I had not met John, but I understood from his friend, a guy named Fred Seaman, that he used to row his boat by my house. My house was right on the water. And he said to Fred, I'd like to go say hi to Billy Joel, but I don't want to bother him. And the funny thing is, I used to drive my boat by his house and think about just stopping, pulling up on the beach, going to his door, knocking on his door, but I didn't want to bother him either. We both respected each other's privacy. And due to that, we never got to meet each other. But I found out later that he used to go by my house. I said, I wish he had just stopped, just knocked on the door. It would have been nice. Would have been a nice thing.
It's called Piano Man.
Paul McCartney is a friend and a very, very talented writer. And his bass playing is fantastic. And he's just this enthusiastic guy. He's got so much energy. He's still touring out there, doing 3-hour shows, singing in the original keys that he wrote these songs in when he was in the Beatles. Still continuing to write songs and new material, and just somebody I admire a great deal. Well, I had asked Paul when we were talking about booking Shea Stadium. to play the last gigs. I had talked to Paul, and it said that he was scheduled to visit with his daughter and was going to be able to come, which I completely understood. You have a visitation with your kid, you don't want to mess with that. So I thought that was the end of that. Well, thanks for thinking of us, and well, maybe we'll figure something out another time. When we played that last show at Shea, I got a message uh, that Paul was on his way to New York and was going to try to make the gig, which I was shocked because I didn't expect that at all. It was like a complete last minute thing. And we're on stage, and now, the guy's got to get cleared to land his flight. He was on a commercial flight. Then he'd have to go through immigration, customs, get a car, fight traffic to get from JFK Airport all the way up to the North Shore of the Shea Stadium. And we just figured it wasn't going to happen. But it did. They rushed him through customs and immigration. I don't think they ever checked his bags. He got in a car. They had a police escort. They scrammed over to Shea, and we were ready to button up the show. We were pretty much done. I think the next song was going to be Piano Man, and that was the end of that. And then one of my road crew comes over to me while I'm sitting at the piano, goes, "The Eagle has landed." And I said, "Huh?" "Yeah, Paul's on his way here." I said, "Oh my God." We're looking at the clock and figuring there's no way he's going to get here in time. And sure enough, just about 5 minutes after somebody in the road crew told me that, I look over to the side of the stage, and there's McCartney wearing the same clothes he wore on the flight over here, tuning his bass, which was a left-handed Hofner bass, with a butter knife. Somehow he got the bass, and he's tuning it with a butter knife. And he walks onto the stage, and there he is, ladies and gentlemen, Paul McCartney. Now, a lot of people don't believe that. They think it was all a setup, and we were trying to build a suspense. Not at all. That's actually exactly how it happened. And then he comes over to me. "What do you want to do?" "Hey, Bill, what do you want to do?" I said, but how about I saw her standing there. "Great. Okay, there we go. All right, good on you, Bill." And we did, I saw her standing there. And then crowd goes nuts. And we get off the stage. And I don't know what I was planning to do, a song of mine to kind of close out the Shea era. And I said, "Wait a minute, Paul, you should end it. You started it with the Beatles at Shea. You should end it. Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "How about She Loves You?" And I don't think he wanted to do that one. He goes, "No, I don't know that one." And I said, "Well, what should we do?" And he said, "How about Let It Be?" And I said, Perfect. I mean, it couldn't have ended any better. Well, of course we'll do Let It Be. I didn't even play. I just sat on the piano and watched. It was, how do you, top that moment? I mean, I was thrilled to have Paul play the last song, and it was karmic. I felt like I was in the audience watching this all unfold, and I got the best seat in the house.